Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline for Pixie Dust PhD. I had been planning our fall 2021 trip down to Walt Disney World for a long time. Like, I started envisioning it probably in early to mid 2019, so a while. Of course, a lot changed in 2020, as I'm sure many of you know, including changes to the parks. Particularly for this trip, I wanted to utilize the Disney dining plan in order to hit up some of our bucket list item restaurants that are cost-wise pretty expensive. I made the whole plan, but of course there was a lot of pivoting, and even from some of our plan B situations, we changed things up quite a bit. In this video, I'll let you know the thought process and the results of how we adjusted our dining plans from envisioning the trip to the reality of what was happening. Stay tuned. Previously on the channel, together we went through my entire thought process about utilizing the Disney dining plan for this trip. If you haven't seen that video, I will link to it down in the description below. But in summary, we were going to do 3 nights on the deluxe dining plan. That's 9 table service credits, which we would have spread out among a lot of really fantastic places like Le Cellier, Yachtsman Steakhouse, Cinderella's Royal Table, and more. With the math I had done, this would have saved us about $164 on those table service meals alone, and then we would have recouped all of the money from the snack credits as well. But as I had mentioned, I'd been planning this for a long time, certainly since pre-pandemic. Of course, that changed things quite a bit. The biggest change naturally was that the Disney dining plan was not offered when we were on vacation. At the time I'm filming this, that's still true, though that could change at any time. By the time this video gets posted, hopefully that's no longer true and I am wrong and the Disney dining plan is back. I know a lot of you are looking forward to having it back. That being said, we could have chosen to pay cash for all of these dining experiences instead of putting it on the dining plan, but of course there were also other changes. Akershus was still closed when we were there, so I couldn't have paid to experience that meal even if I wanted to. Cape May Cafe, which we had slotted into our plans if we were going to buy the Disney dining plan because it's a good use of 1 credit and my partner particularly enjoys seafood. However, it changed quite a bit in terms of its value as a credit or even if you're just paying for it because the endless crab legs are no longer included. When we were booking our dining reservations, Yachtsman Steakhouse was still closed. However, at some point after that 60-day mark, it opened back up. When I went to book it, actually, I think I tried to book it for a Tuesday and there was no availability, and it took me an embarrassingly long amount of minutes to figure out that, oh, it's just closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That's why I can't book it. The last huge change, at least for my plans, was that Cinderella's Royal Table was open, but it was distanced characters. Like, it definitely was not the princess meal that it once was. But of course, we were down there for 10 days, and the dining plan was only going to cover 3 nights anyway, so we had other planned dining. Regardless of the status of the Disney dining plan, we knew we wanted to go to Via Napoli, to Topolino's Terrace, Oga's Cantina, and a few more. Of course, as our trip got closer and it felt like Disney dining plan wasn't coming back and some things weren't going to open or come back the same way they were before the pandemic, I had backup plans upon backup plans. Primarily, we were going to slot in Beer Garden for lunch or dinner. That's a place neither of us have been that we hear very good things about. We wanted to try out Beaches and Cream for lunch or dinner if we could. And we also wanted to go to Trails End for dinner in order to eat that Hoop-Dee-Doo fried chicken. Once I accepted that there was going to be no Disney dining plan for while we were there, there were some other considerations. Previously, if we were going to purchase the Disney dining plan, we would be using those credits to cover Le Cellier and Yachtsman Steakhouse, meaning that we would be having pretty heavy steak meals either on back-to-back nights or just separated by 1 day, basically. Since there was no Disney dining plan though, we now had the freedom to spread those out. We had Le Cellier slotted for a Thursday and we decided to keep that, and initially I wanted to put Yachtsman in on Tuesday or Wednesday, but again, that didn't work out because Yachtsman was closed. So we ended up eating at Yachtsman on Monday, so they were 4 days apart now instead of back-to-back nights or just separated by 1 day. I was able to book Cinderella's Royal Table, and it was actually a fantastic time for Happily Ever After fireworks viewing. But we ended up canceling it because it was just hard to justify paying that price for not the full experience that I wanted in terms of the princess character meal. We had also booked a Crystal Palace lunch, and when I had booked it, it actually wasn't the standard Crystal Palace buffet. It was more of a coursed meal where you got to pick an entree and they would bring it to you instead of that buffet style. The reviews for the course meal were really good, so I was pretty interested in trying it. However, it ended up that the day we booked Crystal Palace for was the first day it was going to return to buffet service. Disney did give us advance notice of this via email, and I decided to cancel. I'm never particularly interested in going to any restaurant, even at home, right close to opening when things are changing, because there are some kinks to work out. Plus, Disney didn't actually tell me how much the buffet price would be, so I was quite nervous it wouldn't be worth it, and we just canceled. And again, we just never could book Akershus, but even if I could have, I'm guessing it again would have been a very modified character meal like Cinderella's Royal Table, so I probably would have canceled it even if we had booked something. Then for our backup dining plans, those also changed a bit. So I did book a beer garden dinner. We ended up canceling because I wasn't sure what the situation with sharing a table was. We were only a party of 2, and typically I think they can seat up to 8 people in the same table, and I just wasn't comfortable with that at the time. Next, when investigating the Trails End menu, it turned out that they were not offering the Hoop-Dee-Doo fried chicken anymore, so we booked Whispering Canyon Cafe instead. It turns out, I believe that the Hoop-Dee-Doo fried chicken is sort of like a secret menu item and you can ask for it and they'll bring it to you, but it's not just generally available. I didn't know that little tidbit at the time, and I'm not sure if it would have applied when we were there, so yeah, we just didn't even end up booking Trails End. And similar to Beer Garden, we had booked Oga's Cantina but ended up canceling it because I wasn't super comfortable with sharing one of those long tables with 1 or 2 other parties. We had been to Oga's Cantina in 2019, so it wasn't an absolute must-do, and it felt like it probably wasn't worth the risk at this time. When we were in Disney World in fall of 2021 was more or less peak Delta variant time for COVID-19, so we were trying to balance having fun, having a good time, not being too limited, but also making sure that we weren't putting ourselves in situations where we wouldn't be comfortable. So for table service dining, there was an expectation of what would end up happening and the reality. In many cases, this meant we didn't end up doing these table service experiences and had quick service instead. This scenario was particularly true for Akershus, Cape May Cafe, Cinderella's Royal Table, and Crystal Palace. Then for Trails End, we did still have a table service meal over at Whispering Canyon Cafe instead, but it was a change in the expectation to the reality. And with Oga's Cantina, we just filled that time going to other lounges around property, no real loss. There were some positives to this though, like we ended up going to Beaches and Cream, which I don't know that we would have done had we been on the dining plan. And also we did still experience Yachtsman Steakhouse like we would have on the dining plan, but we got to push it to a later date, which was a little more enjoyable to space it out from Le Cellier a bit. Ultimately, even though the reality absolutely did not match my expectations, it all worked out in the end. I am still a little bit bummed about giving up that fireworks viewing seating for Cinderella's Royal Table, but I know Cinderella's Royal Table will be there when we go back next. Also, given the pandemic, I was pretty nervous about doing indoor dining in general. As you can see, like, if we had indoor dining that I thought might have been shared with other parties, like at Oga's or Beer Garden, we canceled. But we did still do quite a bit of indoor dining. After the first 1 or 2, it became pretty apparent that for the most part, places were only booked at roughly 50% capacity, and even if the tables weren't spread out, they spread out the parties. So yes, we were sharing indoor space, but it was at least not crammed in like I have experienced at Walt Disney World before. That was a very big relief. I certainly had it in my mind that if after the first couple experiences I wasn't comfortable, we could cancel the rest and just do quick service dining and eat outside or in our hotel room all the time. I'm glad it didn't end up being that. And even though we had to change our plans quite a bit and there was no Disney dining plan offered, we still did eat at many amazing locations and have a bunch of great meals at places like Topolino's Terrace, Le Cellier, Yachtsman Steakhouse, and more. Looking more specifically at dining plan considerations, because there was no dining plan and the characters were modified, we did not go to Cinderella's Royal Table or Crystal Palace. And then in that same vein, but of course because of closure, we didn't go to Akershus. I am sad about these, but I do think on the bright side, it probably saved us some money. All in all, for this trip, we definitely had to modify our ideal Disney dining plan situation. Then beyond no Disney dining plan, of course, there were COVID-related factors that made me modify my backup plans and backup plans. But service was still amazing. The cast members were truly fantastic. We had a good time, and in the indoor dining we participated in, we did feel safe. It may not have been the dream Disney dining plan experience I had laid out in my mind, but we still had a lovely time. I definitely am looking forward to the return of the Disney dining plan. We've never actually bought it before, and I really want to try it out. Once it's back, then I can use those credits at Cinderella's Royal Table, and hopefully that's back to a normal princess party. Between the Disney dining plan coming back and characters getting back to normal, I'm very much looking forward to the future of Disney World. Let me know how you feel about dining at Disney World these days in the comments down below. Also, if you've been recently, have you had to adjust any of your dining plans? How did you feel about your expectations versus reality? As a type A planner, it is always annoying to have to adjust so much, especially within, just a few days of leaving for the trip, but it all worked out, and I think, like I said, we had a great time, and we probably did save a little bit of money. And if you want to chat about this topic outside of YouTube, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PixieDustPhD. Thanks so much to everyone who did leave a like on this video and who has subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate your support. May the rest of your day be magical, and we'll see you real soon at PixieDustPhD.